Welcome. Welcome to my hometown. Well, we want to get this thing rolling because we know everybody's been waiting for you, and we get some pretty special guests over here to my left. I'm telling you, they're got to be the three hardest working individuals in Ottawa that keep PEI rolling, and I'm proud to work alongside them so we can send them back to Ottawa, and I hope I can tag along and carry their bags. But the first one is Lawrence McCauley from Cardigan. Bobby Morrissey from Egmont. Sean Casey from Charlottetown. And honestly, I think I've seen more of her during the pandemic than anybody else, including Justin, but she did a fabulous job, was instrumental in the vaccinations and everything she'd done for Canada. We certainly appreciate it. Anita, and there's one person I can't remiss, and that's Wayne Easter, who's the shoes that I'm trying to fill. So I personally want to thank everybody for their support and everything that you're doing to try to send us and keep this country going and this province going forward. But I want to introduce this gentleman. He doesn't need any introduction. And I said, well, what do I call him? And I'll just call him Justin, the Liberal leader of Canada from Papineau.
Thank you, Heath. Thank you very much, Heath. How's everyone doing tonight? Listen, I don't know what it is, but the past few times I've been in PEI campaign and the weather has been so glorious over the past number of years, but I will take the blame or the responsibility for the sunshine tonight. It is absolutely lovely to be here. So great to see so many people out supporting Heath, supporting our colleagues as we're going to make a choice, a really important choice to move forward in the country. I have to say, I want to start with a big thank you to all of you, not just for coming out tonight, but for everything you've done as Islanders over the past 17 months. It has been a really tough haul. People have made sacrifices. We've lost too many loved ones across the country. We've seen real challenges, but people stepped up. People stepped to be there for their neighbors, each other, to support each other. And it is such a privilege for me to be able to tell you all thank you. As you know, we're not through it yet. We still got work to do, but the strength of Canadians pulling together is really, really important. So merci beaucoup, mes amis. Of our job, part of the reason you send us collectively to Ottawa to represent you and serve you is to make sure we have your backs. And on that, I'm so pleased to be here with Heath MacDonald, who will do an outstanding job filling some very big boots of Wayne's in terms of stepping up and making sure that all of you here have the strongest possible voice as we move forward at a really important time. We have to make it through this pandemic, and we're not through it yet. But we also need to think about how we are building a better future that includes everyone. And that's a challenge that we're going to need some of the strongest possible voices. And what Heath brings to the table is very, very exciting. Thank you so much, Heath, and your family for stepping up. Another big shout out to Lawrence McCauley, Bobby Morrissey, and Sean Casey, who've been absolutely outstanding voices for the island. And I do want to pause for a moment, because Canada is leading the world on vaccinations. PEI is leading Canada on vaccinations, so thank you to that. You guys are. But none of that would have been possible if we hadn't had an extraordinary team in Ottawa stepping up to make sure we could lead the world on vaccines. And that's why we have our Minister of Procurement, actually the Minister of Vaccines, Anita Anand, with us here today, who grew up in Atlantic Canada and is just continuing to do the work. We got enough vaccines in this country to vaccinate everyone last month, 2 months ahead of schedule. And that's because people continued to step up. But Canadians stepping up is also the real story of people being there for each other. And I know even though Prince Edward Island is leading the country on vaccinations, there's more to do. We all went out early and strongly to protect our vulnerable seniors, to protect folks who we knew were at greatest risk of catching COVID-19. And we did that. Our elders got massively vaccinated. Canadians followed suit, whether it was healthcare workers or ordinary Canadians making sure they stepped up. But there's one group of vulnerable Canadians who can't yet get vaccinated. That's our kids under 12. And just as we were stepping up to protect our elders, and our kids were working hard doing homework at the kitchen table, and skipping school days and birthdays, and helping out with dishes and around the house in very difficult times, they were stepping up for us. We need to step up for them. That's why every single stop these weeks of this campaign, I'm going to be encouraging people to go and get vaccinated. And I know most of you have. I know most of Prince Edward Island has, but there's a few who haven't, and we need to have those sometimes difficult conversations about how we get over the line, how we make sure those kids who can't get vaccinated and folks who are facing cancer treatments and immune suppressed who can't get vaccinated stay safe as well, because it's us doing our part that keeps them safe. And on that, I'm just so grateful to all Islanders and everyone across the country who's been stepping up, because that's what Canadians do. We're there for each other. And that was something that led through this pandemic, and quite frankly was really something to be proud of as Canadians. Que les différents paliers de gouvernement d'un bout à l'autre de ce pays, quelles que soient les formations politiques, on a travaillé ensemble. On a travaillé avec les premiers ministres des provinces pour s'assurer qu'on réponde à cette crise de santé de façon ferme et unie. Team Canada came together in an extraordinary way as people from across the country of different political parties leading governments at the provincial level stepped up. We had dozens of First Ministers meetings to talk about how to move forward in the right way, how we were going to work together. And I have to say, your Premier here in Prince Edward Island, Dennis King, has been an extraordinary partner for this government. The work we were able to do together, moving forward most recently on childcare, ensuring $10 a day childcare for families across the island in the coming years, with a cut in half of all costs for childcare by next year. That's a big thing. And his leadership, even as a progressive conservative, emphasis on progressive, in contrast with what Erin O'Toole is talking about, is really good for families. We were able to move forward on agreements. Yeah, it's worth an applause for that. We were able to work forward on agreements on long-term care, and even an agreement on pharmacare, where we're moving forward to make sure that nobody in Prince Edward Island, and we hope to scale it up across the country, again, we have to work with premiers for that, nobody in this country has to face impossible choices between paying for the rent or groceries and paying for the medication they need. That is something that all Canadians understand. We all know, particularly in this crisis, how important health care is. How important it is through this crisis that we have people's backs, particularly the most vulnerable. Parce que dans toute crise, c'est les plus vulnérables qui font face aux plus grands défis. Que ce soit les personnes des communautés marginalisées, que ce soit les femmes en situation précaire, que ce soit les jeunes ou les aînés, nous avons besoin d'un pays qui s'occupe des plus vulnérables. That's exactly what our instincts were as a government. And you know what? When you know someone, when you meet someone, when you see someone in a crisis situation, what do? They fall back on their core. They fall back on their values. So as Liberals, we made a straightforward promise to all Canadians that we would have your backs. And we did. We stepped up with the CERB, with the rent subsidy, with the wage subsidy. We stepped up to help our elders, help our young people, to help families, to help small businesses, to help workers. And yes, Conservatives kept saying, oh no, you're spending too much on Canadians. You have to worry about the economy. But what they don't understand is the economy depends on Canadians. And the best way to ensure a strong recovery is to invest in Canadians. And that's exactly what we did, despite their cries that we were doing too much. And when it comes to healthcare, well, we're seeing the same thing. Even as we're moving forward on pharmacare here in Prince Edward Island, even as we're continuing to step up on supporting the provinces with increased support through this pandemic for healthcare, Aaron O'Toole, in the pandemic, was busy talking about the fact that he believes in a private, for-profit model of healthcare. That makes no sense. It's exactly counter to what everyone's experience was of being there for each other, of being there for each other, of not giving better breaks so that the wealthiest can still shortcut the lines to better services. We need to make sure we're improving healthcare for everyone. That's the commitment we're making, and that's, quite frankly, the choice people are going to face in this election. Now, I've heard a few people grumbling about the fact that we're in an election. Those are usually the people who grumble every time an election comes, even if it's 4 years apart. I know a lot of campaign volunteers here are excited about elections, but this isn't just another election. This is, as we all know, an extraordinarily important time in the life of our country. Over the past 17 months, we have invested more in fighting this pandemic than we ever have before in anything else. We've been supporting Canadians, we've been getting through this, and we're going to continue working to get through this, including with strong measures like making sure that anyone who boards a plane or a train needs to get vaccinated first. Aaron O'Toole, of course, doesn't agree with that, and he'll roll it back, but he'll also not tell us that if all his candidates are vaccinated. And that's just irresponsible. But he's left us a very clear choice, not just about how we get through this pandemic, but how we make sure we're building a better future for everyone. Because that's the choice we're making. In the years following World War II, decisions were made that set up the next 70 years of this country and indeed of our world. And coming out of this pandemic, governments here in Canada and around the world will be making extraordinarily consequential decisions about how we move forward, about what lessons we learned from this pandemic, but how we need to continue to be there for each other in the best possible ways. And Canadians deserve to have their say on this. Don't let anyone tell you you shouldn't have your say on how we're moving forward, because that's what this election is about. Et le choix ne pourrait pas être plus clair. Ou bien on retourne en arrière avec les conservateurs, ou on continue d'avancer avec le Parti libéral du Canada. And I'm counting on all of you to get out there and make it happen, to support Heath and Bobby and Lawrence and Sean, to make sure you're getting out there and having those conversations with your neighbors, with your friends, getting out there and go knocking doors to make sure that we're connecting with Canadians and making them understand how important this moment is, not just for the next few months of how we get through this pandemic, but for the next few decades of how we build a better Canada and a better world. And that's why I'm so excited to be here tonight, to be able to chat with you all, but also to be able to be moving forward optimistically and positively for everyone. Merci beaucoup, mes amis. J'ai bien hâte de vous voir. Merci pour tout ce que vous faites. Thank you, everyone, for everything. Merci.